Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Welcome
y'all.
back to another fantastic edition of the show. Super glad to have you here with us. We love and appreciate the fact that you are tuned in to the His and Her Money
Thank
show
you.
because we know that you don't have to be. And so we don't take your listenership, your viewership for granted. So thank you for tuning in to another show. Do us a favor, man. If you love us and you appreciate the work that we do, share this episode on your IG stories or anywhere on social media. Our handle everywhere is at His and Her Money. We would love to see you share it, and we'll holler back and reshare it as well, man, to show you that love and appreciation that we're speaking of. Today's show is going to be dope, man, for all the entrepreneurs out there, those who are entrepreneurs in their mind and those who are entrepreneurs in real life. We got a powerful story of perseverance and profitability to share with you guys on today. We have a very, very special guest named Mignon Francois. I practiced that, and I think I got it right. I'm gonna ask her when she come on if I got it right again because I've been practicing. And she has an incredible story, man. She started with $5.
I'm so excited.
And she created a $10 million empire from cupcakes, ladies and gentlemen, from cupcakes. And she's here to share her story, not just the rosy mountaintops, but there's some ups and downs. There's been some valleys. There's been some obstacles and some pivots along the way because we want to give y'all everything about this whole journey to entrepreneurship. We know people on IG like to post in front of Bentleys and tell you that everything in entrepreneurship is easy, but it sure ain't. And so that's why we want to share this story with you guys. So we're excited about this. You excited, babe?
I'm extremely excited.
All right.
Yeah, very excited. We are actually live within our pro community. If you guys want to learn more about that, go to hisandhermoneypro.com. So they get to ask questions live, and they love these entrepreneur stories. So I'm excited to dive in.
All right. So let's get this thing started. Hey, Mignon, welcome to the His and Her Money show.
Thank you for having me.
So how did we do with the name?
You did amazing.
Okay,
I love how you put that little extra New Orleans twang on the end of it. You get an A for all of your efforts.
Thank you. We really, really wanted to do our best here. But we're really excited to have you on because you have an incredible story of entrepreneurship. And if the pandemic didn't teach us anything, is that you need more than one source of income. And so a lot of people have been in their entrepreneurial bag during this whole time.
I actually heard a stat that more businesses have been created in 2020 than ever before. And so I was like, that's
what happens,
incredible.
Right?
Yeah. Sometimes when you're pushed against the wall and you need options, you're like, look, maybe I should do this thing that I've been saying that I've been wanting to do for all these years. So,
and so we're excited to have somebody like you to share.
Because people had time.
Yeah.
People had time on their hands, right? When it first happened, people were, oh God, well, what am I going to do?
True.
And I think it was that God set us down, and that, that time you've been asking off from work, that hope, that wish that you had more time.
Yes.
None of us will be able to say that we didn't have time to seek God, to spend time with him. Yes. And in that time, he was dropping ideas. What I love about entrepreneurship is the ideas aren't even ours, but we're so arrogant to believe that we come up with this stuff. But if we could have came up with this stuff, we would have came up with this stuff a long time ago. But that you wake up and you have these aha moments is just evidence to the fact that God is saying, hey, why don't you do that thing? What do you have in your house? Yeah. And I think a lot of people found that they had, like Dorothy, they had it all along, like from the Wizard of Oz. And so God has been dropping some fresh manna from heaven in this last.
Listen,
I mean, she didn't already preach a sermon.
Hello, that is the truth.
If you don't pick the manna up, what happens? It spoils.
Yep,
it spoils.
We have a limited time there, and see that's why we get mad when we see other people doing the things that came into. I could have did it better than that. Oh, I had that very same idea. You don't get to get mad when you see someone else doing your idea because it wasn't your idea in the first place. You were asked to steward over it, to come into collaboration with God on it. And that's what entrepreneurship is. And if people would know that, these ideas that we have are not ours, they'd steward over them differently. If I could believe that I was good enough to come up with a bakery like this and start an award-winning recipe like this when I didn't know how to bake, not even out of a box, and then turn around and be here where I am 13 years later, I would have did that a long time ago. I wouldn't have lived in a house with no electricity. I wouldn't have lived in a house with no water. I wouldn't have lived in a situation where all of my cars were being repossessed and I was being evicted and on the verge of homelessness, right? I would have did that a long time ago. So we got to start first being humbling ourselves and realizing that we've been tasked with an opportunity and that we have a limited time because somebody else can do it. You're not needed to do it. You're actually chosen for it. And if we would realize that, we would take more pride in it. And we'd also leave some of that responsibility for its success to the Lord.
Man, you're right.
So for everybody, this is Mignon Francois,
this is my type
the
of
founder
conversation.
of the Cupcake Collection. We were going to do a formal introduction, but we already in the
This right
thing.
here-
So we just going to go into the thing.
I absolutely love it. And I love what you said. You didn't even know how to bake out of a box.
Didn't know how to bake, but she created
so
a
many-
multi-million-dollar bakery.
So many of us
Let
put
that marinate.
limitations on ourselves. We're counting ourselves out in a sense without necessarily just going for it. So introduce yourself.
No,
This
it's
is
too late.
powerful.
It's too late. This is Mignon Francois,
Okay.
the founder of the Cupcake Collection, Nashville,
Incredible.
Tennessee. Now let's get to it.
What I think of about your story, what I think is so incredible is this was all done with a cupcake.
Yeah,
So let's talk about your beginning.
yeah.
Where did this start? Talk about the very beginning, the moment when God dropped this idea into your life, into your heart, into your thoughts.
So somebody who couldn't bake to make a bakery.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was listening to a financial guru here in Nashville that's, it's worldwide syndicated. And he was telling people that they could get out of debt by having a bake sale or a garage sale. But we had sold everything that we had to get to Nashville and I didn't know how to bake. But I had these two awesome daughters who were about 10 and 16 at the time who were baking every day. And so I thought that they could handle the volume of a bake sale. And so that they would bake stuff at night. And my idea is that I would sell it in the day. I'm from New Orleans. And so in New Orleans, we have a lot of little houses that have entrepreneurs on the inside. They're not necessarily called entrepreneurs. They might be called the candy lady or, the
Chicago too.
Shop, right?
Yeah.
And so, she opens her front door. Her living room has all this, stuff that you can choose from if you stand on her porch and look through her window. Those kind of entrepreneurs are probably gone in this day and age, but that's the kind of environment that I grew up in. So you could raise up, a little window on your porch and open up a store. And so we have these little shops called snowball stands. They're like shaved ice. They're all over the city. It's a thing that's known in New Orleans. You can't get a snowball like that, I think, except if you go to Hawaii. There might be something similar. But anyway, that was sort of the model I was using. I had this window on my porch. I thought I'll open that up. I'll sell during the day. And I thought they could handle the volume of a bake sale. We only chose cupcakes because we felt like we could decorate that and make it look pretty. I just want to inform you that it's hard to even decorate a cupcake. But we started, when we started on the journey, went to my girls about it. And as soon as I told my oldest daughter about it, because this was my plan for her after graduation, she let me know she actually had a plan after graduation. It did include me, that she was going back to New Orleans where we were from. And so without her, my younger daughter isn't interested. I put out a 3x3 sign out on my porch at this point that says bakery coming soon. I feel like I told the whole world that a bakery was coming soon. And now I don't have any bakers. So, oh Lord, I got to learn how to bake. At the time I was married and I went to my ex-husband and I said to him, can you tell me? And he was like, there's books in there. Use some of my culinary books and figure it out. And I was like, fine, don't challenge me because I will beat you at your own game, right? And so I pulled out my secret weapon. I called on my grandmother who was known for cooking and baking. She would make my favorite cake, which was her coconut cake. And I asked her for help. And my grandmother, who doesn't have any recipes, began to walk me through how to make her cake. It was pinch your fingers together, open up your hand and fill it so you can close it with that much of this ingredient. Measure to the first line on your finger, like these kinds of things. I'm like, sometimes when grandma gives you a recipe, it's not consistent. It's going to be off. Sometimes I'm like, oh, grandma must have been mad at that cake today because it didn't taste as good as it usually does, right? But I knew if I was going to open up a business on that, I was going to have to be consistent. So I wrote down everything that my grandmother said. And in writing down everything that my grandmother said, I started realizing there was a pattern there. Now, I had been in college 17 years earlier. I went to Xavier University. I was studying to be a doctor. I couldn't apply the science to the human body. So I was flunking out and in danger of losing my scholarship because I just couldn't figure this thing out that I always said I was going to be. And so here I am 17 years later in my kitchen with all these ingredients written on a paper, and what my professors had been trying to teach me then all made sense right now. These were chemical reactions, and I could manipulate the ingredients to get what I wanted. I made my first successful recipe and thereby my first successful cake. And then I started realizing I could do anything. So I always say I'm not a baker, I'm a scientist. And so I manipulate ingredients in the kitchen to prepare what it is that I want to get. I have now been voted as the best cake in Tennessee and in Louisiana, where we have our second location currently operating. And we have won countless awards across the city of Nashville, including a national recognition from USA Today as one of the best bakeries in the country, all from a girl who couldn't bake, which leads me to say this to your listeners. Every stupid thing that you've ever had to do is taking you from where you are to where it is you're going to be. They're not mistakes. I heard Fantasia say it. It was necessary.
Man. You're preaching.
Ooh, that was good. So when you had this idea to come up with a bake sale, was it to get out of debt? Was that the ultimate goal?
No, it wasn't originally to get out of debt. It was just to help make ends meet. I wanted field trip money. My daughter was a senior. I wanted to pay senior dues. I wanted my children to have the things everybody else had. I would go on their field trips and be the room mom so that I could get little things for my children or get extra time to pay for things or get things for free because I was there. And so I was just looking to help, pay for the lights sometimes. I was just looking to ultimately pay for them to go on field trips. Little did I know that I was not only going to pay for their field trips, I would pay for kids who needed books to walk across the stage and finish their degrees in college. And, all those things. We have such little aspirations, such little things that we're asking for. And I just feel God saying, ask me for more.
Yes.
So you said you had the revelation of what your professors were trying to teach you in college, and 17 years later, it started to make sense. So that means you probably started this thing somewhere in your late 30s. Mm-hmm. Most people are in that position in life and feel like they can't start something.
True. It's
too late.
Yeah.
I should have did that in my 20s. Did you have any of those thoughts going across your head? And if so, how did you overcome them and push forward?
Yeah, I definitely. So I have 7 children. And so I always tell my children, after 25, the world isn't playing with you. At 25, up to 25, we'll mess around with you. You don't know what you want to do. You don't know what you want to be. We're good with that. 26, we need to have a plan, right? And so we need to know where this plan is going to lead you or what you're trying to do. So for me, I didn't start this until I was 33 years old. I think there's something significant about the number 33 in that, for those who are Christians, that Jesus did his whole ministry. I don't care who you are and what you believe, whether you believe in him or not, the most influential human that ever existed on the face of the earth. Now, that's the arguable point. And so at 33 years old, he's finished his entire ministry that still speaks thousands of years later. You don't have to follow to see it, right? And so, if you just take that and say, there's something significant in the idea of 33. And so I just want to encourage people to know that thing on the inside of you that's saying that you can do this, that passion that you wake up with every morning that sometimes say, hey, don't get on the interstate right now. Just go straight. Don't even get on the interstate, but you get on the interstate anyway, and then you land in traffic, and God knows you don't like traffic. He's that concerned about the desires of your heart that he doesn't even want to see you get caught in traffic. And if you begin to exercise that muscle, it will inform you about what it is that he wants to collaborate with on you. That special place where you can see details that nobody else can see is where you can find your gift. And so when you operate in your gift, you'll never work a day in your life. That's something that my mom always taught us. And so my gift wasn't necessarily to be a baker. My gift was to encourage and to pour into other people so that they could see what their opportunity was if they only believed. I just needed to open the door and show them what good business looked like. And then I would offer them an opportunity to try it out, right? And so Cupcakes just happens to be my platform by which I accomplished that thing that I'm trying to do. My goal is to redeem the time that was stolen from my ancestors. So as I look back in my heritage, where we, hail from the largest plantation in Louisiana at the time, I want to go back and give voice to the grave, to the ones that came before me, whose names will never be known, who were great bakers, who would have probably done great business if they were even shown. But I want to now give voice to them and say, we will be great. We will make your name great, and we will redeem the time. You can't get back time that's gone, but you can redeem it by how you use the rest of it. And so that's what I want people to know. It's never too late. Every stupid thing is taking you from where you are to where you want to be. And those little instances, those little experiences are adding up to become what it is you're going to be. I was a stay-at-home mom. I call myself a household manager. And a lot of times I think that moms discount themselves as to what it is their skill set is. But you have been managing a brand. You have been, creating a process, right? You have been, you have been sort of building up, personalities. There's so much that you've been juggling that you could say, this belongs on my resume because I've been raising all of these children. And I used the fact that I was making gifted and talented people walk out of the door every day to my benefit. And I think that all of those things that delayed me, it wasn't a denial. It was just a delay. But I needed those things in order to get me to where I was. I wasn't ready. I would have messed it up. Like sometimes we want to hurry up into a situation and we want to get there right now. But God loves us so much. He's such a gentleman that he won't let you look bad, and he's not going to make you let him look bad. So he's going to sit you on the side until you get together all the things that you need to learn. I had to humble myself. I used to look down on people who didn't have what I had or have position that I had. And now I defend those people, and it's God had to humble me and say, oh, no, you're not better than anybody else. And then now I get to teach that in my everyday walk that, all of us are important in the kingdom of God.
Amen.
I just went to the left.
No, this is good. Somebody needs to hear this.
This is exactly where it was supposed to go. You freed a lot
good.
of people.
This is good.
So how did opening day go? You lost your their first two employees quit at 10 and 16 years old.
You put the sign out in front of your home.
You did all the marketing.
Bakery coming, yeah.
So how did opening day happen?
How much did you make on the opening day?
That is so good. Opening day, I went to bed with no walls painted and all that kind of stuff. And my family said, go to bed. When you wake up in the morning, your bakery is going to be finished. And that's what it was. And we opened to all of these friends and things coming to our bakery on the first day. And then nobody else came back. You think all these people are going to come? They're going to be lined up because you put one sign outside it. All these people that say they're going to come don't come. I remember, people sitting in my chair one day, and my husband, as I like to call him, called on the phone and said, well, how are things going? And I opened my mouth to complain because I had made $17. This is, a couple of weeks in. I'm like, God, I did this because you told me to. They said if you had a bake sale, people would come. I know it tastes really good. We give it away if we had anything left over the day, and people would say, "Ooh, that's the best I ever had," and all that kind of stuff. God, why aren't they coming? And I got ready to complain about it. And then immediately my spirit dropped. Everything that you have is not a surprise to me. You may not understand it, but I do. And so in that moment, I gathered myself and realized that if I had $17, that God sent it and that he was responsible for it. And that's when my life turned around.
So
That's
good.
when I stopped having $17 days, when I realized that it was God who decided whether I was going to be successful or not. But if I submitted my plans to him, that he would make them successful. And people just started coming. We're really close to a very popular restaurant destination, just a couple of houses down from us. And my little 15-year-old, so my children would come and work at the bakery for free after school, and they would get whatever tips I had in the tip jar. So their goal was to get tips into the tip jar. So he would go down, he talked with the owner of that business and asked, could he pass out flyers? So we got on the computer, made some little cardstock flyers, and people would mill around waiting for tables, and they would come down with him because they couldn't go home until we sold all the cupcakes. Like, they couldn't go to the other side of the house because we lived in the bakery. They couldn't go to the other side of the house till we got rid of everything. And so he would say things like, my mom has the best cupcakes in this neighborhood. My mom has the best cupcakes in the city. My mom has the best cupcakes in the state, and it became the world. Little did we know that he was a prophet, that he was speaking into existence what he wanted to see. And that's another thing that I want to leave with your listeners today. We speak what we seek until we see what we've said. For power of life and death lies in your tongue. You can have what you say, but it's according to your faith that will be unto you. I love telling the story of this widow in a biblical parable whose husband dies, and her children are going to be taken into slavery because he's left them with debt. And so she goes to the prophet and says, what am I supposed to do? My husband has died and we have all this debt. And he says, what do you have in your house? So he doesn't say to her, well, this is what you need to do. A lot of times we're looking for other people to answer our problems, but what we need, we already have. So he says to her, well, what you gonna do about it? What do you have in your house? And she says, all I have is a little bit of oil. And so he says, take the oil, go and gather all of the jars that you can gather, and then start filling those jars. So she sends her sons out to get all the jars that they can get, and she's pouring in the oil. And then she's pouring, and then she asks her sons for another jar, and they say, Mom, we've gone to the whole town. We've gotten all the jars that we can get. And so there are no more jars to get. And so then the oil stops flowing. She takes the oil, she goes out and she sells it, and she goes into wealth. So not only does she pay the debt, they live for the rest of their lives. What's the lesson? It was according to her faith that the oil flowed. God will send oil to flow on you according to your faith. So if you only knock on one door and say, hey, would you try out my business? That's all you're going to get, because you only had the faith to ask one person to come into collaboration with you on what it is that was in your heart to do. But if you will knock on all the doors that you can knock on until there are no more doors, then you will get a reaping that is equivalent to how many doors you knocked on, because whatever it is that you put in is what it is that you're going to get out. It's just like a bank. You don't get to make withdrawals from the bank when you didn't put in. So what you get from the bank is predicated on what you put in to the bank. Whatever you invest is what you will reap in return.
Yes, so good. So talk about the moment. How did you go from, this idea so you can make field trip money and just be able to make ends meet to saying, I think I have a viable business here. I think I really want to make this a legitimate business and do this with my life.
It wasn't even my idea. I literally still am in shock as I see the people stand in lines that go down blocks And when we pull up, you know, in a mobile shop, they're, oh my gosh, we know you already. I remember the first time that I was walking down the street in New Orleans and I got recognized, and I was like, I'm in a whole other city. We were in the Bahamas. We were in the Bahamas and somebody stopped me in the Bahamas. I'm still in shock. I literally was just, I get up every day. I lay in my bed before I get up and I ask God a question. I fully expect an answer before I go to sleep tonight. Sometimes I'll get an answer before I even put my feet on the floor. And it could be anything. It could be anything as God, like, where do you want me to, you know, where do you want me to sow today? Who do you want me to bless? Like, what am I supposed to do about this situation? Do you want me to really apologize to my sister? You know, like whatever it is, I'm going to lay in my bed and ask God a question. I fully expect him to answer me. And God says, try me in this and see if I will not open up a window of heaven and pour you out so much blessing that you won't have room enough to receive it. And that's what I invite him into every day. Because again, he's a gentleman. He's not coming where he's not invited. And so I was just getting up every day, going after that field trip money. And then one day I realized, wait a minute, I paid off my student loans. Wait a minute, I'm not worried about lights anymore. Do you need help with yours? Like, you know, people who are successful are generous. And God called me into generosity for keeping my hand open. Because you know what happens when you keep your hand open? Somebody can put something in it. But when you keep your hands closed and you just greedy and you don't want to share, guess what? Nobody can put nothing in it. So whatever somebody tries to give you, it falls off. And it falls on to another person. When you keep your hand open like this, you have room to receive. I was standing in the shower one day and God said, look at the water coming out of that shower. Put your hands together and try to catch it. If you ever tried to catch water, you cannot do it. You cannot do it. All you can do with water is put it in the palm of your hand. Through your fingers, there are cracks that no matter how much you try to put them together, the water's coming out. And God said to me, see that water? Try to count those streams as drops. You cannot see them. They're coming out so fast, you cannot see the individual drops. And he said, I want you to try to catch it. And I was only able to get a little bit into my hand, so much so you still can't see the drops. God said, that's the blessings I'm pouring upon you. And all you get to keep is whatever you can hold in your hand. The rest of it, you're supposed to hold it for a little while, let your effects fall on it, and let it pour out on the other people that are underneath you, that are coming alongside of you. So God has called me into generosity, and people who are successful keep their hands open. So I started seeing, well, who can I get to help me do all this work? Because when God says I open up a window and pour you out so much blessing that there's not enough room, it looks like I never have enough employees. It looks like no matter how early we get up in the morning to get this job done, we still gonna be racing to the edge because God has poured out so much that you don't even have room to take it all in. So you need to give some to her. You need to give some work to her. You need to give some of your increase to her. You need to make sure that she has some of your knowledge, that he has some of your extra. And the more that you give, the more it's given back to you. Pressed down, shaken together, running over, back in good measure.
For a lot of mothers, majority of mothers, their kids are their first priority. And at a lot of times at the expense of what they feel are priorities for them as an individual. You are a mother, 7, and building a business. How? Like, what were your days looking like? Because that's probably a question going through people's minds that are listening. Like, my kids, you know, I'm doing this with my kids. They got extracurricular activity. So practically, like, how were you structuring your days to be able to make this ascend with building the Cupcake Collection?
What I want people to know is you're going to miss some stuff. You're not going to get to everything. I missed a lot of things. And when I look back on it, it was a decision I made for legacy. I wanted to leave something for my children's children. The Bible says a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So I really wasn't worrying about what I was going to leave for them because they were in it with me. I was worrying about leaving enough of a footprint so that the ones that were coming behind us would still have crumbs to eat off of. So that meant that I was going to lose some things. And so you have to know that there's no such thing as balance. But I love Lisa Nichols says it like this: search for harmony. That means be present when you can be present. Be there when you can be there fully, when you can be there. And that's the way that I did it. For the things that I could go to, I was all up in it. I was screaming and yelling and being their number one cheerleader. At night when we were, doing homework, that meant that sometimes my children had to stay up all night with me in order to get these projects done because we had to eat. And that was, our first priority was shelter and food and transportation. I had to make sure that that was, taken care of. I had to enlist their siblings. I had to make sure that their siblings knew that they had a responsibility for their siblings. And even now, my grandchildren are invited to work in the business. So from the youngest to the oldest, my 9-year-old granddaughter, she knows inventory. She comes in after school and she does inventory. My 5-year-old granddaughter knows how to scoop cake and is learning how to ice cupcakes expertly. She knows sanitation and she knows how to properly set up a sink in order to restart the bakery and make sure that everything is in cycle. Because whatever you put a child to, they will rise to the occasion. So they were invited to be a part of the business so that we could be together. And so I gave them jobs to do. And now most of them have been recruited away from my job and are doing jobs much beyond their years that they should have in experience, because they got their start on their 10,000 hours right here at 9, 11, 16, 15 years old.
Does your credit score have you down and looking for solutions? You may just find the answers you're looking for with Credit Sesame. Credit Sesame is your solution for a free no-hassle credit score, credit analysis, and tips for managing your money. They are here to help you take control of and have the tools you need to bring about a bright financial future. Get empowered today. There's no credit card required. Receive identity theft protection up to $50,000 and discover a marketplace for credit and loan officers that will help you get to your next level. Visit hisandhermoney.com/credit sesame for more details.
Talk about the need for now having to actually have a location. So business obviously was great. And then the next step was you actually have 2 locations now.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Man, that's incredible. How did you go from doing it right in your home to now having locations, physical locations?
Yeah. So my home was actually God will give you everything that you need. You just got to look around. So our physical location was always here. We lived in the location of the bakery. When we got this house, the guy who we were buying it from, it was condemned. And he was offering owner financing, and they were asking a whole lot of money. It's like, nobody wants this house. Only we want this house. And he's like, lady, a restaurant is going to be here one day. And I was like, oh. Little did I know he was talking about my restaurant. It was going to be my restaurant that was going to be there. So we lived in it for 3 years before the bakery ever showed itself to us. And so this area was zoned mixed use. So we had a separate door that went into a separate part of our home. And that is what eventually became the bakery. I opened the bakery with a dorm-sized refrigerator and a KitchenAid mixer because that's what would get me past codes, and it would keep enough product in temperature so that I can make enough ingredients for the day. I think a lot of times we're looking to do such big things. I was too. I was looking off on the main street, West End Avenue, and
Commercial kitchens and
downtown Nashville and all this kind of stuff. And I just could not afford that. And so the question became, what do you have in your house? And so I used the square footage I had in my house. And so it became that the bakery just became so popular that we had to take another room out of the house and give it to the bakery. And so instead of living in 7 rooms, now we're living in 5. And you got to take another room out of the house and give it to the bakery. And then you're living in 4 rooms until we actually moved out of the bakery and the bakery took over the house. And that's how we got our first location. It's just like, just speak what you seek and then open your heart to see what it is that God is trying to show you. I wanted all this stuff. It was like, oh God, I gotta go in my living room. I don't have what everybody else has. And little did I know that God was turning this and what I was doing into a destination. We have gotten so much national recognition because now you can't tell the story of our neighborhood without mentioning Mignon Francois and the Cupcake Collection. We changed the narrative about what it means to work in North Nashville. And so while other people were discounting us and other people were saying they're never going to come and stand in line, not in that area of town. Oh, we're scared to come over there. They would come to 2 of the restaurants in the neighborhood and just get out of here as soon as they could. And we got to be a part of the conversation when they built the new stadium. They wanted to know how I felt about the fact that Jackie Robinson played across the street over there. And it gave us all these opportunities to speak on behalf of our North Nashville community. 37208 is the most incarcerated zip code in the nation where the Cupcake Collection exists. And we changed the narrative to say that good things are happening in 37208 and you need to come and see about it. And so now when they talk about neighborhoods in Nashville, they never miss an opportunity to talk about Germantown. And we believe we are a big reason why that happened.
Wow.
I got a lot in me to say. Your story is incredible. And what you're giving right now, so many people are listening, even our pro members over at His and Her Money Pro, they're listening, they're being inspired, and literally you're blessing someone today. The question I have for you, you don't appear to be a lazy woman. You can't be. To be able just to keep going and going and going. So many of us, God gives us ideas. He puts things in our hands and we procrastinate, right? We're not managing our time well. Faith without works is dead. We want to be this multi-million-dollar business. We want to do these big things, but we're not putting in the work. What kept you putting in the work? What was it?
Yeah, you know what? I love talking about this, that even Adam and Eve, who had the best digs of all time, just again, if you just believe in biblical reference at all, that after they were shown the garden, they were told to go and work it. Their first responsibility was to take care of it.
Yep.
So if they had to work, how much more is required of me and you? And, I love to say this because, if you haven't figured out, I'm a Christian, right? At least I would hope that God would count me, in his family. But that if I believe the story of Jesus being God's only son, that he emptied out heaven for, so that I could have, the Bible says, I have come that you might have life more abundantly. And so that word abundantly means to the full. So I came, gave you my only son. He died on a cross so that you can have life to the full. But you want to do mediocre things and expect that I do great and amazing things for you. That, you want to just like get up late, show up at 12, but I emptied out heaven for you. And so when we give all that we have, we're matching ourselves to God. All we own is right now. You don't own anything except the moments that you're in. And if you would say, in this moment right now, God, I trust that whatever I have, you're going to meet my need. In our weakness, he's made strong, right? And so even in my weakest point, I'm going to get up right now. I don't know how to bake. I don't have a storefront. I just heard that cupcakes were about to be a thing. I'm going to show up and I'm going to get my flour, sugar, butter, and eggs together. And he shows me, boom, that's science. You got a recipe that you can make that, he has said, when you own the right now, because nothing else belongs to you. When you own your right now, he will collaborate with that. And what I think is no I don't want to say happenstance that the letters OWN, own, is the same as NOW. Because that's all you have possession of. Because when we get off this podcast and somebody's listening and looking, they didn't know their whole house burned down over here. And then you have nothing left, right? But you owned the time that they spent here to be with us right now. And when you realize that OWN is NOW, you know what that gives you? WON. That's when you win. You will have won when you own the moments that you're in right now.
That's so good. So good. Okay. This is fun.
The pro players are saying she's preaching. That's good. Own it now. Like, this is awesome. This is amazing.
So Mignon, you started this as a side hustle, as a homemaker, trying to get some money for your kids' activities. This thing became a business.
Yeah. Didn't know how to bake. You gotta say that.
Didn't know how to bake.
Not even out of a box.
Not even out of a box.
Not even out of a box.
And one of the toughest industries to start a business in is the food industry.
Yeah.
Known for failure.
Yep.
High failure rate. And you didn't fail. Now, as you matriculated up the ladder of side hustle to business, and some people get stuck and they spend all their time working in their business and they don't have time to work on their business. But that wasn't you. You kept going. You kept going. How were you educating yourself along the way? Because you said you went to school for pre-med. You didn't go to school for business or entrepreneurship. So you had to bring in some education and some knowledge, and you had to learn this high failure rate industry. You had to learn in order to take this thing from side hustle to multi-location business to $10 million in profits and revenue. So how were you learning the business side of this business?
I was blessed to have ears. You know, they say that you have two of these so that you listen more than you speak. I was willing to humble myself. And when people would come and tell me anything, sometimes we get so arrogant about our business that we don't want to hear what anybody has to say. And when people would bring me ideas, I would listen to them. I became one of the first food trucks, the second, in fact, in Nashville. We were the leader of a food truck trend here in Nashville because a customer said, hey, there's this thing that they do in California, New York. I don't know if you know about it. It's called food truck. You should bring one to Nashville. I started researching what that meant. I was like, oh, I would like to get a cool unit. We got a school bus. We converted it. We put a oven in it and some mixers in it. We took that thing from Nashville to New York City, put some of our teenage workers who were about to graduate from high school, let them sell stuff along the road. And they ended up going into college with things that they needed. And it took our brand with only using Facebook along the way. I had wins because I listened to other people. And I love to say I got my MBA from the School of Hard Knocks. One of the major players for me was a neighbor who moved in across the street. And she saw what I was doing. And I would go over there because she was very successful. And she would just let me in her house and we would just talk. I was willing to sit at the feet of elders, right? And say, what do you know? I don't know what I'm doing. And I was willing to be honest about what I knew. If you said a crazy word to me that I didn't know, like, what is EBITDA? I don't know what that means, right? And then they would tell me what that means. And then I said, okay, well, can you break that down? I was never afraid to be the one to raise my hand at a conference and say, whoa, I don't know what that means. And so I was always trying to get that manna poured straight into my mouth. And so it was that lady who said, you know what, I've seen you. I want to recommend you for a program. So she sent me over to the Entrepreneur Center here in Nashville, where I joined a Catalyst program. You had to have made a certain amount of money in your business to have been considered for this particular program at the time. And it was like getting an MBA on the fly, from individuals, mentors who would come in and talk to you about whatever your problems were, whatever you needed. And it was there that they told me I need to work on my business, not in my business. But I didn't see how I was ever going to do that at the time. But I did it with little baby steps. So there's a lot of mothers listening, and that's what I want mothers to know. Treat it like your baby. A baby who is newborn, you're not letting that baby go with anybody. That baby needs your special care. That baby needs 24-hour interaction with you. But by the time that baby's 5, it might spend a night or 2 out. By the time that baby is 13, that baby is, got chores and doing its own thing. And by the time that baby's 18, that baby's on its way. When you are looking at your business over the years, it kind of coincides like a baby. And so I started seeing my business in that way. And I was always looking to nurture it like I nurtured my children at those different segments of their lives. And when somebody said, I want to pay for you to go to a conference, I sat in the front row. I took notes. I started learning, even in a sermon, I got to sit down and take notes. Anybody who's listening to your podcast and showing up regularly, who's getting fed, especially in your little VIP section, should have a notes book open at all times, because an idea only lasts for 30 seconds scientifically, unless you make it immortal by putting ink on it. And so when these ideas drop in, I just would be, writing them down. I carried a pocket-sized one that would fit into a purse, and a pen that I would never let anybody use because I didn't need that pen to, disappear. And so I was always, can you say that again? I was always a willing student at every single turn. And those things ended up paying off for me in ways that I now sit on the board at that Entrepreneur Center, mentoring now to other people who are looking for my grassroots experience. I didn't even know that was a thing, but it was just like, if you follow the Holy Spirit, that's something the world doesn't want to talk about. The world doesn't want to talk about the Holy Spirit, who will wake you up in the morning and say, get up at 3:17 and come and sit with me, because I got some things to tell you that will put you way in front of everybody else. And while nobody else is thinking about sweet potatoes, you make a sweet potato cupcake that blows the mind of your entire country, that where every other sweet potato cupcake you ever meet for the rest of your life wants to be the one that you put on.
Come on.
And that's the kind of thing that the Holy Spirit will give to you. And
Yes,
so
he
I've
will.
been just being in communion with the Holy Spirit as much as I can.
Come on. We talk about this in our pro group, how the Holy Spirit will give you ideas and we are to run with it. Oh my gosh. I have 2 more questions. I don't know how many questions you have. I have 2 more. I could talk to her for hours. Oh my gosh. I want you to talk about overcoming, issues. Like, we all came out of this pandemic, or I don't even really know if we're really out of it, but 2020 hit, right? Talk about having to overcome different obstacles within your business, building your business, also having to be a little off trend, maybe such as the food truck. You started with that first. So talk about having to pivot and figure out, no, I'm not going to drop this baby. I'm not going to abandon this baby. God still gave me this baby to take care of, which is your business, and you still ran with it. So talk about having to overcome obstacles within your company.
I think that it goes down to what I said to you before, that every morning before I get up, before I put my feet on the ground, I ask God a question. As God said, submit my plans to him, and then I'll be successful. It's so funny that if you pray, the Bible says, the effectual and fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. So to be fervent is to go with passion. Like, oh God, I need you today to show up for me. Like, if you need to hear from God, like, get on your knees and plead about that thing. He's concerned even about the fact that you don't know how to write an ad, that you're scared to go and talk before these. I'm a shy person. People always get like,
we can really tell how shy you are, Mignon. It's so apparent.
But shy don't feed you. Shy does not feed you. And so I had to find myself saying, God, you're gonna have to like quell this fear. What I learned is that God said, I'm not gonna take fear away. God said, I need you to go even though you are afraid. Because guess what? In order for courage to exist, fear has to exist. Because courage is moving even though fear is there. And if you don't have fear, there is no such thing as courage. And so I want people to know, as you're trying to pivot and do things, that it's going to be according to what you believe. What you deposit in that thing is what you're going to be able to withdraw. When we first came into a pandemic, I did a segment on my Instagram story that we used to call moments with Mignon, because people were afraid. It's like, what are we going to do? Well, my money is not sure. I've lost my job. I'm home now. And what I wanted people to know was a lot of times what our issue is knowledge and money, right? We don't know what to do. We don't know what we don't know. We don't have enough money for it. And so I always like to share my story, because I am a living example that money, knowledge of the business, your education, credit, those cannot be reasons why you don't start, because I didn't have any of those things in an industry, like we said, is known for failure. But what God showed me, that faith and money have the same characteristics. One has a depository. It's according to what you put in is what you get out. That's what happens at the bank. That's what happens with your faith. Faith, the paper, money is paper. It only works by what you believe. I told one of my team members, I said, I pay you every week. She said, yeah. I said, do I? What do I pay you? She said, you pay me money. I said, have you ever seen it? She said, no. It just, directly deposits into my bank account and then I use it. I said, it's a concept. You never actually see the paper to know that the paper's there. The same thing goes with our faith. But the difference is your return on faith is much greater than your return on money. God says the faith the size of a mustard seed could move a mountain. Can you imagine how much money you have to use to move a mountain? Nobody but Oprah or Bill Gates probably has enough to move an actual mountain. But the Bible says if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you could say, get out of my way, and it would move from here to there. And we're just not exercising our opportunity. These ideas that we were given were shown to us by example that entrepreneurship is not our idea, but entrepreneurship is truly the road to freedom. So I believe that in the creation story, my friend Jordan Rayner taught me this. He has a book named Called to Create. And in that book, he says, God is the first and ultimate entrepreneur. He showed us by example. He created a product. He worked on it for 6 days. He upgraded that product when he made a woman. And then he sat back and he said, this is good. This is real good. And that's just the same example that we're supposed to use as we start our entrepreneurial journey.
Ooh. Can I ask my other question? You got one.
Well, I just want everybody to know that we also had Jordan on the show. So if you go
have that in the show notes.
We'll have that linked up in the show notes of this episode, because he talked about the power of the concept behind Called to Create. So it was definitely powerful and definitely goes along with that. We'll have it linked up.
I can ask a question.
Yes, you can ask your question.
Very much so. I have so many tags in his book, that I keep just, as nuggets to get me through my day sometimes.
Yes, this is so good. So good. So I have another question. He told me I can ask. Okay. If not, you can go ahead and ask the question. Do your thing, girl. Sometimes we ping pong. I want you to talk about a defining moment in your career where you said, is this really my life? Now, we, as an entrepreneur, we have a lot of them, especially even as Christians, right? Every single day. But what's that defining moment for you where you're like, this is my life.
This is my
life. This is real. Lord, you did this for me.
I have them all the time. And I feel like I'm about to give you a really small one. This is the one I'm going to give you. The tornado hit us in Nashville last year in March, right before the pandemic. And we had this big, majestic magnolia tree. And I'm from New Orleans. Magnolias are flowers. So I love my magnolia tree. And it fell and knocked out the windows in the mansion across the street. And it was impeding traffic on 6th Avenue North. And the first thing that I did was, started, looking how to clean up my house. I'm looking at my house. I'm like, this whole entire community, my neighborhood was in the eye of the storm. And our whole city was decimated in the storm. But while the apartment building surrounding me and every house surrounding me was damaged in this tornado, I had minimal damage. And walking on it, you couldn't even see it. Walking up to it, you couldn't even see the damage. As we got in more, we began to see more of the damage. But I hadn't even made it down to my house, and people were all over social media talking about the Cupcake Collection, standing in the middle of the damage of the tornado. I'm like, what's happening? I'm learning about the condition of my home from people who have already gotten out because they were living closer than I was living. And I started realizing, God, I never have to defend myself in this community. Because in this community, if you come for me, somebody else gonna come for you, right? Because God has put a shield around me because he knows that my intentions are always good, right? So these people were like coming to my house at 3 o'clock in the morning, checking on it and reporting online. Cupcake Collection is just about the only thing standing. So I come down here and we gather ourselves, we start realizing, okay, we need to like figure out cleaning up. Droves of people start showing up to my neighborhood. They have brooms, they have rakes, they have saws, because they're about to start cleaning up my house. So they start cleaning up, my grounds and everything and getting us together. And then there's just more people. And I'm like, okay, I have enough people. I need you to go further into North Nashville, further into 37208. And I need you to help these people who don't have a voice, who nobody can hear. Keeping my hand open, right? Those people saw, we had some friendships. I'm trying to make it real short. We had some friendships with radio stations and such as Mignon, what do you need? I said, people are hungry. They're walking around this neighborhood in a daze because they can't find coffee. Somebody get me a coffee station. Somebody get me a cable antenna so they can use their cell phone. Somebody bring me chargers so that we can make a charging station to charge their phone. Our friends down the road got with Xfinity, which is our cable provider, and put a van out there so that you could have a mobile station where you can charge your phones. Our friends from the radio station paid for food vans to show up and feed the whole neighborhood. I'm like, God, I just used my social media. We're feeding North Nashville and we're sending aid to places where they're coming to Germantown. We already put that on the map, right? But we need them to get to 37208 where they don't have as much of an opportunity to be heard. I go down there because now I'm hungry. About day 3, I go down there to get something to eat. And a man in the line who's serving people says, I'm here because of you. I saw you online saying that people needed to eat, and we're here because of you. We had destination restaurants out here catering good food, not only hot food, they had dessert. They had bags for them to take home and plates for them to eat later. And I just started to cry.
You making me tear up hearing the story. Oh my gosh.
This was my life. 5 days later, about 5 days later, I started thinking about what I needed because people were saying, what do you need? I don't know what I need yet, but the 10th day, I know I've been without electricity. Electricity is back on. I need to recoup my money. I'm a debt-free business. I don't live on credit cards. I need to recoup these last 10 days. Get back on my social media. I know what I need now, guys. I need 5 pop-up shops. I need 5 places in the city. This is before the pandemic hits. This is the beginning of March, before it makes it to Nashville. I need 5 places to have a pop-up shop. That same guy who saw me in that line, who had me in tears, calls his company on the phone and says, Mignon needs your help. He doesn't know that I know their vice president who says, Mignon needs help. Wait a minute. She texts me on the phone and says, Mignon, why am I hearing that you need help? And I didn't hear about it. What do you need? I said, I just need a pop-up shop. She said, how about I give you 9 of my restaurant locations?
Come
Put
on.
your product in. And then how about you just keep them there popping up until you say uncle? We'll do it as long as you want to do. I was looking for 5 locations, each day for 1 day, 5 total days to recoup the 10 days that I had lost. That Monday when we were to start, pandemic hits, we can't do anything. But we work it out. I'm laying in the bed, God, what are we supposed to do? Aha moment, we pre-pack the cupcakes and we sit them in those 9 locations. We start delivering them to locations around the city. We're still doing that pop-up. It's been a year. Every day in Taziki's locations around the city of Nashville. It carried me through the storm. God said, I will supply your needs according to my riches, not yours. You don't have to have enough money. You don't have to have any credit. You don't have to have any knowledge. You don't have to have any experience. All you have to be willing to do is own your right now. Not be afraid to ask. Ask and you will receive. Press down, shaking together, running over, back in good measure. That's how I'll be giving back to you. And God thinks way bigger than we do.
Yes.
And I think that's a
Wait,
wrap. Man.
But we cannot gloss over the fact that she said that she is a debt-free business. You went from $5 to $10 million, and you mean to tell me debt-free?
$5 to $10 million.
$5, right, to $10 million. And you mean to tell me debt-free?
Debt-free.
What?
We did it with no loans.
Come on.
We did it with no debt. We didn't have the ability to get any. Remember I said, like, God, I really want to have. And God said, we're going to do this right in your living room. And little did I know that he was giving me better than I was asking him for. If I had been where everybody else would have been, what would make me stand out? God was making me stand out from the crowd. He was pushing me forward. So sometimes what we think is a denial is just a delay. What I thought that he was putting me in a pit, he was taking me to the palace, right? Because that gave me opportunity to be interviewed, to say, what are y'all doing over here? And we got to be a part of the conversations about what this whole area is going to look like. And to then begin to sow seeds into other people who saw what we were doing and said, I want to do it too. There's a reason why I wanted to be on your podcast today. Because I promised God that if he would make me successful, that I would tell anybody who would listen about what they can do if they believe. So being here with you today is just letting me keep my promise to God. And when I do for God what I promise him he will do for me what he promises me he will do. So this is purely selfish for me.
Well, we are thankful that your team reached out to us because this story is
thank you for
incredible.
being selfish.
Yes, thank you.
Because we got to hear all of your
Yes.
insight and your wisdom. So now everybody gonna want a cupcake
Oh my
that's in
gosh.
Nashville or that's gonna
I
take a
don't
trip.
want a sweet potato. That's my favorite food, sweet potato.
It's a short flight. It's a short flight
Like,
now. It's a short
What?
flight.
Yes.
You gotta go
I'm
to
gonna have
church.
You
get
know
that.
what? We ship them nationwide.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
can ship them to your door. You don't even have to, come and take that trek. But
That's
we would
good.
love to see you in Nashville or in New Orleans, where we've also just been voted as the best cake in Louisiana.
All right. So let everybody know how they can get some. If they in Nashville, where they go. If they in Louisiana, where they go. And if they're not in either place, how do we make our orders online?
Yes, so we're at 1213 6th Avenue North. We're in historic Germantown in Nashville, and we are in the historic Garden District in New Orleans on Magazine Street, a place where traditionally people who look like me hadn't been able to do business prior. So we're still redeeming the time. But if you can't make it to either one of those locations, we're always available on thecupcakecollection.com. They can visit us on Twitter at Cupcake Tweets and on Instagram and Facebook at the Cupcake Collection. I am Mignon.Francois on Instagram if you want to join my personal community where we're constantly declaring joy over the situations in our life.
Love it. We will have all the links in where you can go to her shop, where you can also order online in the show notes and the description box.
What's the flavor that we should get? What's your top sellers? Now, because I'm about to go on the website and put in the order.
Love cupcakes.
Yes, if you were going to get a 6-pack, your top sellers would include sweet potato, red velvet. I would probably put wedding cake and our strawberry. I'd make sure that you had carrot cake and you had chocolate. That's what I would put in the 6.
My stomach just growled. Did y'all hear that on the microphone? I hope that didn't come through on the microphone.
One of those.
That all sounds delicious.
Mignon, we can't say thank you enough. You just fired up
you.
everybody. I promise you just fired up everybody. And we really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to share your story and your wisdom with us today.
Thank you so much.
I could talk to y'all all day. Thank you so much for just letting me tell other people, so that not that they can be in my business, but so that they can be about their business.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my gosh.
Wasn't that just like ridiculously
I
inspirational?
went from smiling to excited to crying.
You
like
almost had a
all in
tear come.
Oh, I had the tears. I thought I saw a few in your eyes.
No, no tears. No.
Okay, well,
I love this.
I can admit it. I was like getting emotional.
This.
I just love seeing God use people for his glory. Like she's selling cupcakes, but it's for his glory. Right. And I absolutely love her story. I think that it's going to inspire so many people to finally say enough is enough. Lord, you trusted me to put this in my hand. I'm going to now bring it to the world.
Now, if you made it this far in the episode, you better share this thing on IG stories. Be a good friend. Don't be stingy. Don't be selfish, because your peoples needs to hear this as well. Tag us at His and Her Money, and we'll be sure to show you some love for doing so. That's all we got for this time, guys. We hope that you're inspired. And like she said, hope you took notes and that you're ready to take action. Until next time, guys. Peace.
Bye, y'all.